So you each have 2 minutes to answer each question. So.
Do I start with you?
Yeah, start with you.
Alright, so how do you guys plan on encouraging the use of public transportation? How do you plan to encourage the use of public transportation?
How do I plan on encouraging the citizenship of Durham to use public transportation? Well, first of all, I probably would have to be the cheerleader myself. I would have to ride, because it's hard to convince people to do things that you would not be a consumer of. It's just like going to school. I couldn't tell a person to go to school and then I'd be a dropout. I would have to be a consumer of public transportation. Also, there needs to be a multimedia campaign to encourage more ridership, to clean the environment. We have organically, friendly buses now that will not be using, we will reduce the carbon. All of these things that the city can do, they have to have a huge campaign to encourage bus riding. But for myself personally, I would have to be the cheerleader that would actually ride the bus, so that when other people see me riding the bus, they would say, oh, this is Councilwoman Wagstaff riding the bus. Oh, then it must be okay. That's the power of being in a leadership role. You have the ability to form, opinions about things by just what you do. So that's what I would first do. I would be a champion of it. So.
Well, I agree with a lot of what Ms. Wagstaff said. That's why for the last 6 months I've been taking 1 day a week and replacing car trips with bus trips. So I park at our local park and ride at the grocery store near our house. I take Route 5, out 54, and then left up Fayetteville straight into downtown. And it's been a fantastic experience for me to learn more about how the system works, and also to learn the limitations of the system. And I think we have to be honest about that. Our bus system, the fares are really low, and I think that's great, but we need to extend service into the evening hours, and we need the bus to come more often, and we need the bus to work better on the weekends. That's one thing that I've found, is that especially I've got a lot of meetings downtown late at night, it's hard to catch the bus back to my car. So I think that's one, leadership matters, and that's why I've been doing that for the last 6 months. I'll continue to do that as a member of the city council. But I think the other things we have to do are keep fares low, make the service more attractive by, again, expanding service, making it more frequent and later at night and on weekends. But also we can do better at helping folks plan their trips, and that's one thing that the city is already doing. We have a trip planning system that people sign up, and they tell us where they normally go and what time of day, and the system helps them figure out what bus connections to get there. There's a video that lets you see how it all works to swipe in, and I think making that more visible to more residents, along with the kind of the personal leadership and keeping fares low, is how we're going to get more folks to use public transit, because the more that the general public is invested in our transit system as a way to get around, the more that they'll accept more public investments of dollars in that system, and that's how we're really going to keep it the great system that it can be.
Okay. I think Hunter's question is number one.
So, should we lower the voting age? I know after the last one, that's not possible for the city to do on its own, but rather the state. Are you in support of lowering the voting age?
I definitely think the voting age can be lower, and I think there are a number of local communities around the country that have done that. I think that's one of the reasons why I was excited to support the implementation of the participatory budgeting program this year, is that it lets anyone in Durham 13 and over have a real stake in how we spend a tiny percentage of the city budget each year. This year it was $2.4 million, and kids across the country participated in that voting process. For 10,000 people voted, including DPS kids 13 and over. And so I think that young people can be more active in our democracy. Obviously, you guys have great questions that you're asking. I think the difficulty is making that change in Raleigh, and obviously there's not leadership in Raleigh right now that's open to that, but I think that's something that we need to be able to be willing to talk about, and so that's absolutely something I've supported for a long time.
You have a minute 30
Oh, I
to
have
answer
a
the
minute?
question.
Okay. I think it should be, and my reason would be totally different. It's because we have a lot of emancipated kids that emancipate themselves for a different reason. And once you emancipate yourself, you are saying that you are now an adult, so you have to be allowed the adult privileges, and voting is one of those adult privileges. Also, we have a lot of kids in Durham that I know that I've worked with, a lot of homeless kids, and a lot of kids that are actually operating as adults. They're actually maintaining households, and they're helping with the adult activity. And I think, it kind of, to me, contradictory to allow a child or a kid or a teenager to operate as an adult, to do adult things, but then we don't allow them to be a part of the adult process. And voting, to me, is one of the most important processes of my life. I tell people all day long, there's only two things that I have total control of that the government can't mess with. That's how I vote and what I put in my mouth to eat. Those are the two things in my life. Everything else, the government can just take it away at any time. So I just think that young people, based on the situations that are going on now in this world, as far as young people like you, y'all are seeing a lot more things than I had to deal with when I was growing up. I'm a little bit older than most of you, so a lot of the things that you deal with, I didn't have to deal with because I came from a total different generation. But I do understand that we do have children that are operating like adults, so they should be afforded adult privileges.
Alright, so how could you improve access to mental health resources for youth?
Would y'all want to pick up?
Yeah.
How would I improve access to mental health? One, the city of Durham, one of the things that we have to understand what their role is. Their role is that all of your public service, that your roads, your streets, your water and sewer, and things like that. The county usually handles all of your public service needs, your mental health, social service, health department, all of those things that involved. But the city, the council members can be good stewards and good partners with the county on increasing funding for mental health. We need to invest in programs that are currently working, agencies that are currently working with mental health issues. We need to put more money into them. One of the things that I notice a lot, every day, I see this every day, that a lot of people that are in mental health crisis, the services are not available emergency-wise. You know, when you're in an emergency crisis situation, you need to be able to have access to things without being told, go to location A, fill out application at location A, we'll get back with you on 2 weeks from now about your situation. Meanwhile, you're in a crisis. What are you supposed to do while you're in that crisis? You're just out there. So we have to make those services more emergency ready so that we can deal with the people that are having those crises in mental health. And we have to put the money. It's mainly about the funding. If the funding is not there to support the organizations and the agencies that provide that, then well, we stop right there.
So Wagstaff is exactly right about the need for emergency mental health care services in Durham. That's why I'm really excited that about a year ago we got a mental health urgent care center in Durham. It's right beside Foster's, near the on the Durham Chapel Hill Boulevard, right along a major bus line. So it's very easy to get to. We went to their grand opening, a number of us. I was really impressed by the nature of that facility. But Ms. Wagstaff is also right that the city and the county have very different roles and responsibilities, and the county, state, and federal governments really have responsibility for mental health care, including mental health for kids. But I think one of the things that the city can do is work with our other local governments, both the school board and the Board of County Commissioners, to lobby our legislators in the General Assembly in Raleigh and in the federal Congress in Washington, D.C., to make more resources available for kids' mental health care. And that's something that a number of us on the City Council have been very active in working across the country and right here in North Carolina on progressive issues that don't necessarily impact directly our responsibilities as elected officials, but are part of our leadership role in the community. And so that's one of the things I think is really important to keep in mind, is that when you're elected to an office, your job responsibility is one thing. You can take a broader view of what it means to be a leader in the community and start advocating on other issues, and that's something that we definitely need to do more of. Absolutely. It's Hakeem's turn. Yeehaw. He's got edamame or donut. something's happening.
Here's your question.
Some food item.
How could you increase school funding
Wait, there's the rest of the question.
or better use school funding to improve youth education?
So there again, there's the way that responsibilities are divided amongst local governments. The city doesn't have responsibility over schools or school funding. The school system is run by the school board, which Wagstaff was once a member of, and is funded through the county board of county commissioners. So the city isn't directly involved in that, but what we can do is be active advocates for our public schools, which is something that I've done for a number of years. My girls go to Hope Valley Elementary, which is our neighborhood DPS school. My wife is on the foundation board for the public school system and is raising money for lots of things to help the school. And one of the other things that I've been doing is meeting with groups of parents who have kids who are about to enter kindergarten, to talk to them about my experience in the public schools, what has worked and not worked for our girls, and to encourage them to give DPS a try. And I think the more that our families in Durham send their kids to public schools, the more that we all go to school together, I think the entire community will be more invested in our schools and be more willing to make those kinds of public investments to increase spending for whether it's teacher pay or infrastructure improvements that the school system desperately needs. So that's one of the reasons that I'm a big advocate for our public schools.
And as a former school board member, I was that cheerleader. I raised 3 sons in the school system. I started at 2 of your lowest performing schools, Eastway, Holloway Street, Shepherd Middle School, and on to Hillside. So all of my kids went to public school. As a member of the school board, I was probably one of the few mothers that were able to hand their children a diploma when they walked across the stage. That was a yay for me. But what I do understand is that increasing funds.
Thank you so much, everybody. This was wonderful. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Have a great day, night, whatever it is.